Hello guys, and welcome to this fourth tutorial about the full SQL course for beginners. If you haven't already watched the three first tutorials, you can find the link above or you can find the link in the description. So in this tutorial, we are going to talk about the logical operators. We are going to talk about the in-between keywords. We will also explain the different aggregation functions that we use in SQL. We will use group by, having, order by. We will also work with wildcards and like operator. We are going to use the limit operator and we will finally talk about the case statement. So to do that, we are going to create a new tab and we are going to use the word database. Okay, so we click use word, right? And we are going to use the country table. To explore the table, we are going to write select all from country, right? And we are going to have the different columns. So we have the code, the name, the continent, the year of independence, the population, life expectancy, etc. Okay, so we have here different things. And we are going to start with the logical operators. So the logical operators are the and, the or, and not. So we are going to start with and. For example, we want to select countries that are in Asia and have population greater than 100 million, okay? To do that, we write select name from country where, so here we write one condition. If we want, for example, continent equals to, for example, Asia, right? So we are going to have our table, okay? So we have all the countries that are in Asia, right? And, okay, and population is, for example, greater than 100 million, 100 million. We execute that and we have the different countries, okay? For example, if you want to add the population, okay, so we are going to see the population and the name of the country. Thus, we can conclude that the AND operator will give us result if both the operands are true. Okay, so if country is Asia and population is greater than 100 million, it will give us result. If one of the operands, so the conditions is false, for example, if we are going to put a country that it is both located in Asia and in Africa, for example, okay, which is not true. For example, Africa, we will have an output which is null. So we will not have any results because one of the operands is false. Okay, and as we have used, so we can use the one condition, for example, which is a character, and the second which is an integer, right? For example, we can also perform the common use logical operators. For example, select 1 and 1, so it will give us 1. Okay, so 1 and 1 give us 1. 1 and 0 give us 1 and 0 give us 0. 1 and null, it will give us null, and 0 and null, it will give us a 0, right? So this is about the AND operator. Now we'll have the OR operator. So for the OR operator, one condition is enough. For example, as we have written before, for example, the country is in Asia or it is in Africa. So for example, if we are going copy and paste that, and in Africa, right? So it will give us all the countries. Thus, we can conclude that the OR operator will give us true, will give us results if one of the conditions is true. So either the country is in Asia or in Africa. So we will have the result, right? So the difference between the and the OR is that for OR, one condition needs to be true, whereas for AND, both the conditions need to be true. Same thing, we can use the common logical operators. For example, if we select 0 null, so the result it will be null. So 0 or 1, it will give us 1. 1 or 1 give us 1, and null or 1, it will give us also 1. Okay, so this is about and or. Whereas for the not, it will give us the opposite of the condition. For example, if we want to select name, population from country, right, where population is greater than 1 billion, for example. And if we select that, we'll have China and India. If we write not, so not population is greater than 1 billion, which means that the population is less than 1 billion. And will give us all the remaining countries. Okay, so this is about the not operator, so it will give us the opposite of the condition. Okay, if the condition is true, it will give us a false. If it is false, it will give us true, right? Now we can also combine, for example, and or operators at the same time. For example, if we want to select name and population, okay, from country, okay, where, so here we can combine both operations. For example, we have to use parentheses, right? So we have continent equals to Asia, right? Or the continent is Africa. Okay, so this or condition will put it between parentheses, and we have population is greater than 100 million, for example. Okay, 3. Okay, and we're close. So we are going to change continent. Okay, so I'm going to change continent, right? If we execute that, we're gonna have the name of the countries and also the population. If we want to add the continent, okay, so we add continent. We execute that. Continent, right? Okay, so we will have Nigeria in Africa and all the main countries are in Asia, right? Now, if we remove the parentheses and we execute that, so we will have all countries. So it will select for us all the countries in Asia, okay, or in Africa, and the population is 100 million, okay. So if we want to use the or condition before the and, we're going to use it between parentheses, okay, and we execute that. We will have the country, the continent is Asia or Africa, and the population is 100 million. So this condition will be applied on both the continents, okay? Whereas if we omit the parentheses, it will be only applied on Africa and not in Asia, right? As we have said, okay? So if we remove that one more time, we execute. As you can see here, for example, for the Armenia, it does not exceed 100 million people and it is displayed, okay, so it will be applied only on Africa, okay. So this is about the logical operators. Now we'll talk about the in operator. So as we have said earlier, for the or operator, it will give us result, or we will have true if one of the operands is true. Well, the in operator will allow us to retrieve data if a given value exists in a defined list. For example, rather than using or statement 3 or 4 times, we can create a list, use the in operator, and use the condition. For example, if continent is in Asia, Africa, or Europe, give me the name and the population of the country. For example, we can write select name and population, okay, from country where, so we can write continent equals to Asia, okay, or the continent equals to Africa, okay, or the continent equals to Europe, for example, okay. and we execute that. So we'll have the following results. Okay, the in keyword will allow us to create the following list. For example, we're gonna omit all that, so we create a list which is as follows. So we have the list is Asia, Africa, and Europe, where continent in the list, right? So if you execute that, we'll have the same result. Okay, we have also between. So between is used to define a range. Okay, for example, we can select the same thing. So we are going to copy and paste that. Okay, copy and paste, right? For example, where population, we are going to define a range between, for example, 50 million and 100 million. Okay, we execute that. So we are going to have all the name of the countries with their population. We can add, for example, the continent. Okay, so here we have the different names of the countries that have the population which is between 50 million and 100 million. So between is used to define a given range. We start by the minimum value and the maximum value. Now we have also the aggregate functions. So the aggregate functions are the following. So we have the average is defined as follows. We have the mean, which is the minimum. We have the max, which is the maximum. We have also count, and we have the sum. Okay, for example, if you want to select, so I'm going to select all the columns. Okay, here we have all of our columns. Now, for example, if we want to select the max life expectancy, right? Max life expectancy. Okay, so we have the maximum, and if we select the minimum, right? Okay, we can select it as minimum, right? We can also select the average, for example, as average. So we have the average. We can select the total countries. For example, we have can select count, right? Count. And for example, we have name as total countries or total. Okay, we execute that. So we have 239, and we can also select the sum. Okay, so for example, the total population in the world. Okay, sum of population. Okay, so here we have the sum of the population. We can also give it a name, for example, total population. Okay, so we have our alias, which is total population. And if we execute that, as you can see, check the manual. Okay, so you have to define your names or your aliases without the spaces between the words. Okay, so if we write that, we have the total population. Okay, so this is about the aggregation functions, which are the average, the minimum, the maximum, the count, and the sum. Now we'll talk about the group by. So group by is used to define groups that have the same values. Okay, for example, we can define the total population in a given continent. Okay, for example, we can write select continent. Okay, sum of the population. Okay, from we have our table. Okay, and we are going to group that. So group by continent. So as you can see here, we will have the different populations in each continent. For example, North America, Asia, Africa, Europe, South America, etc. Okay. Now, if we want to sort these values, for example, from the highest to the lowest or from the lowest to the highest, we can use the order by. Okay. So order by is used for sorting. So we use first the select statement. We select our columns from our table. We are going to group that by continent, so the sum of the population in each continent. Then we are going to order that, so order by, for example, the sum of population. By default, it is ascending, so it will be from the lowest to the highest. Okay, so if we are going to omit that, the ASC, for which stands for ascending, it will give us the same result. Now if we want to display it from the highest to the lowest, we can use DESC, okay, which stands for descending order, and it will give us the highest to the lowest from Asia, Africa, and Europe. Then if we want to select the, for example, the top three, we use the limit keyword. So limit, and for example, you write 3, okay? So here we use the limit keyword to select the total rows that we want to display, okay? For example, if we want to select the highest, we select limit equals to 1, okay? Now, for example, if we omit the limit, okay, and we add the condition. So as we have said, we write the select from, then we have the condition. So this is the order where, for example, let's say the sum of population is, for example, less than 700 million, okay? If we execute that, so we will have an error, okay? Because we cannot use where clause with aggregation functions, okay? And if we want to add this condition, we use the having keyword. So having keyword is used to set conditions that are defined using aggregation functions, because the where clause does not allow to do that. And we have to define having after the group by statement. So if we cut that, we can add it after the group by having. So we write having the sum of population is less than 700 million, okay? So we have our result, okay? So having is used to define a condition that depend on aggregation function, because where clause does not allow to use that. Now we'll talk about the case statement. So case statement is used when we want to define categories depending on some conditions, and as a result, we will get a new column with the defined categories. For example, we can define a case statement in here. So for example, we can select name, for example, population, and third column. Okay, as we have said, the categories will be defined in the third column. This third column will be defined depending on conditions. Okay, so we write case when population, for example, is less than 50 million, then we will define a string that says population is less than 50 million. Okay, just an example. Another condition, when population between 50 million, for example, and 100 million, then we define a new string. We say population is between 50 million and 100 million, for example. Else, so if the first condition is not satisfied, we go to the second condition. If the second condition is not satisfied, we go to the else statement. So else, we say that, for example, population is greater than 100 million, okay, as a string. So write and as population, for example, category, and we add the table. So we have said from country table. Okay, so here we select the first column, the second column, the third column will be as a case statement. It will be named population category and it will depend on conditions. So if population is less than 50 million, population between 50 and 100, else we have this string that will be displayed. Okay, now if we execute that, we have the first one, it is less than 50. They are all less than 50. Here we have population greater than 100 million, population between 50 and 100, etc. So the third column is defined using the case statement that depends on the conditions also defined on the population. Okay, so we write case, we go to the first condition. If the first condition is satisfied, so we write population is less than 50 million. The first condition is not satisfied, we go to the second. So population between 50 million and 100 million, we say that population is between 50 and 100. Okay, if the first and the second condition are not satisfied, we go to the third one, which is greater than 100 million. Okay, so population is greater than 100 million. Okay, so this is about the case statement. Now we'll talk about pattern matching. What we mean by pattern matching is that when we want to define a condition on strings, for example, we want to select words that start with A, words that end with Z. So generally, if we want to search for a specified pattern, and this pattern obviously needs to be a string, we can use two different methods. We can use the like keyword, or we can use regular expressions. When we work with the like keyword, we have two common signs that we use. So we have the underscore and we have the percentage. So for the underscore, matches exactly one character, okay? And we have the percentage, which can match, so matches any number of characters, okay? Even 0 characters, okay? So this is multi-line string, okay? And for example, if we want to work with the city table, okay? So right, select all from city. We have the different names, okay? Now, if we want to select all from city, where, name, and for example, if we want to select names that have exactly 5 characters, so we write like, a string, and as we have defined in here, the underscore match exactly one character. So if we want to display names with 5 characters, so we put 5 underscores, 3, 4, 5. Okay, if we execute that, so we will have only the series with names that have exactly 5 characters. Okay, for example, if we want to look for names that start with C, so we write C, and it can have any number of characters after the letter C. So one condition is that the word or the name needs to start with C. We execute that. So we have all the names that start with C. It is the same thing if we write C in the lowercase or in the uppercase. So we'll have exactly the same results. All right. So same thing if we want, for example, to select names that start with C and have exactly 4 characters. So we have to omit the percentage and we add 3 characters. So we have the C and 3 other characters. So here we have names that have exactly 4 characters. Okay. We can also use the percentage, for example, any number of characters. So we select names with any number of characters that end with T. Same thing. So we have all the names that end with T and we didn't specify exactly the number of characters. If we want, for example, to have 5 characters words, we can add 4 underscores. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll have names with 5 characters that end with T. Okay? Same thing. if we want to select, for example, names that start with C and end with T, so write C percentage T, and we will have all the names that start with C and end with T. Okay, so if we write C percentage T, it means that the word starts with C and ends with T. Same thing if we want to know, for example, words that contain, for example, th in the middle, so we write percentage th percentage, we execute that, so we'll have all the names that have th in the middle. Okay, so it can be in the middle, it can be in the beginning, or it can be at the end. Okay, so we didn't specify, we just want names that contain th. Same thing, for example, here we have selected names that have th. If we don't want to display names that contain th, we can add not. So not like th. So here we will have all the names that do not have th in their characters. Okay, so not like, it means that all the names that are selected here do not have th. So this is about the like operator for pattern matching. So that's all for this fourth tutorial about SQL course for beginners. Thanks for watching and see you in the next tutorial.